my name is Debbie and I'm certainly not an artist. However, I've recently just started a little bit of art and painting, and it's the first time I've done it since I've left school, which is 32 years. A long time since I picked up any kind of crayon, marking, colouring pen or paintbrush or anything like that. And I used to really enjoy art at school, and then for whatever reason, you know, work takes over, life takes over, and I felt like I lost some of my creativity. However, I've recently been inspired a lot by the art tutorials I've seen on YouTube, and although I don't yet feel that I have any original ideas of my own, what I have really enjoyed is watching the tutorials on YouTube and then doing something similar myself. So this was, let me pull these other ones out of the way. This was the first piece of, I suppose you'd call it art or creativity, that I did since I left school. It's a complete copy of an image done by another YouTuber, and I really am embarrassed to say now that I've forgotten the name, but I will post details to the channel that I found this on underneath the video description. I created this background with acrylic paints first of all, and then used various circle templates to create all of the little markings just here, and it's got some nice gold pen, which you probably can't see, but it's got nice gold marks up here. And I enjoyed the dot painting too, so I've done a little bit of dot painting here, and mostly this is all actually done with Sharpies. So Sharpie sort of oil or paint based Sharpies, a black and a white, and that was really all it took on top of the nice bright painted background to get that picture. And I'll tell you, I was absolutely chuffed to bits in a British way. Really pleased with how this came out. I absolutely loved it. So that was the first thing that I did. Let's move on and take a look at what came next. So this one came next. I enjoyed the dot painting that I did on the other one, and I wanted to create more of a Mandela effect. And again, this was inspired by some of the tutorials that I found on YouTube, especially a rainbow tutorial. And again, I'll post the link to the tutorial or the channel underneath my own video, and give credit to the people who inspired me to create my own art. And again, I was just so pleased with what I achieved here. Seeing, you know, I hadn't touched paint or anything in such a long time. It's not perfect by any means, but I really enjoyed doing it. So after that one, I tried again. I tried to do something similar, a little bit bigger. So this is kind of a 9-inch square that I've cut off from a regular piece here. And this, I started off with a chalkboard black paint. So I've got a flat black background, and then the colours are just a little bit glossy, and because they're stacked one colour on top of another, it's also got a little bit of a 3D feel to it. So I really enjoyed making this one. I think in the end I got a little bit over enthusiastic, and I wasn't quite sure how to finish the edges, and I think I've added too much around the outside. I should have quit while I was ahead, but I still really like the finished effect on that one, and that one's really good. So then what I went on to do was paint a few just random acrylic backgrounds. So a bit like this original one where I painted the colours onto the paper first of all and drew a design on top. And I created a few just random backgrounds. This actually was just little bits of leftover paint from something else, and so I've just kind of put them on here, and it doesn't look like much, but I think if I went on to draw an image on the top, this would look really good with a black and white image on the top. And then I did a couple more here. I tried to get more of an ombre effect. I don't have a lot of paint colours. I don't have access to a lot of that here, so I'm kind of trying to mix my own colours or blend colours together, and some of them don't look very good, but you know, I'm trying, and that's what's important. I'm having fun. And so here I've tried to create kind of an ombre effect. I've put the acrylic paints, and then again I've used another tutorial that I found on YouTube which put plastic wrap over the top and dried, and it's given the paint quite a nice texture. I don't know if you'll be able to see, but it's got like a crinkling texture here which has been left by the plastic wrap as it's dried. So that's that one, and then another one here in the blues. You may be able to see the texture a little bit more on that one. So I really enjoyed doing those, but I haven't drawn anything on top of them yet, because then I got distracted again. There's just so much on Pinterest you can be, on YouTube you can be distracted by. And I started to get into flow painting and acrylic flow. So I had a look again at a lot of tutorials, a lot of channels, and I'll list them again in the description underneath this video. And this was my first acrylic flow picture. Now I know that a lot of people, when they do this kind of thing, their aim is to get these cells where the colour underneath pops through and it looks really organic. I didn't have any of the right materials and additives. I don't have access to a lot of craft supplies, but so I just did the flow without being too concerned about getting the cells come through. And actually, when this was wet, I was so delighted with it. I was like grinning from ear to ear. I think it's really beautiful. I love especially the silver metallic. It took over a little bit more than I expected it to, because it floated a little bit more to the surface, and I didn't really have quite enough paint mixed up, so I've kind of spread it quite thinly, and that's probably another reason why it tends to look a little bit dull. But I'm actually going to put this to one side because I'm going to put a varnish on that one. So pleased as I was with my first one, I then went on to create this utter catastrophe. This one, it's brown, which is weird because I never used any brown at all in it. I used a bright orange, a bright red, a black and a gold, and I kind of put them on diagonally, and I did get cells. You can probably, oh, it's so dark, I'm not sure whether you'll be able to see or not, but I did get little cells of colour popping through. But the trouble is, although it looked really good when it was wet and done initially, the longer I left it, the more the black seemed to come through and the darker it got. And now, I mean, I kind of like it, but it has a bit of a bloom on it. I'm not sure how to describe it, but although it's dark, it's also got like a light bloom on the surface, which seems to dull the colours. So this one is going to get a good clean with just some alcohol or something like that, and then I'm going to re-gesso this one and use this canvas again for a little bit more practice. And then this was my third acrylic flow painting, and this one did become my favourite. I got a lot more interest, a lot more cells in the paint just here. Again, the silver paint dominated a bit more than I wanted it to, but I did this one in the evening and I had a lot more paint this time. So when I came down in the morning, it was still glossy looking, and I thought, wow, that one looks so much better than the others. And I picked it up, and the reason it was glossy looking is because it wasn't dry, and I put my hand right in it and spoiled it. Well, not that it was that great anyway, but you know, I definitely made it even worse, shall we say. So this one again is another canvas that I'm going to have to reuse. So I'll put all those off to one side, because what I'm going to do today is varnish this one and just put some acrylic varnish over the top. So let me get all my supplies together. So this is the varnish I'm going to use. We call it a varnish in the UK. But here it's called a protective finish. It's water-based by Minwax and called polyacrylic, and I've gone for the clear gloss finish, although you can get it in like a semi-gloss and even a matte as well, I think. And again, I saw this recommended from a lady on YouTube, and I was able to get this in my DIY store, whereas I don't have access to a lot of other craft materials, so getting something in a DIY store I can use was great. So that's the finish I'm going to use. And then I've also got this brush, and it is super, super soft. These black ones are a little bit more stiff, but the white ones, the ones on the end here, super, super soft. I almost want to just keep stroking them because it feels so nice. And what I'm hoping is if I use this brush with these really, really soft bristles, that when I put the varnish or the finish on here, that I'm not going to end up with any brush stroke lines. So I'm just going to open this, give it a little bit of stir, and then we'll get started. So I've given my finish a good stir. I liberated a few of these coffee stirrers from my local coffee shop when I was in there the other day, which I felt guilty about, but I go there all the time, so I'm sure they don't mind me borrowing a few sticks. And I've given it a good stir. So let's see, I'm just going to try and dip in the ends of the bristles because I don't want too much on there because I don't know how thick or thinly it's going to spread. So let's have a go. What I'm hoping is that by doing this, I'll be able to bring back the glossy effect that it had when it was wet, because now it's dried, it's more dull, and I don't think it looks as nice. And the colours also perhaps not quite as bright as they were. It looks nicer now I'm wetting the surface. I don't want to get too much on my hands. I should have put gloves on, but I was just too excited to get started. I probably also should have started by doing around the very narrow edge here, which I can just dab a little bit on there, and that'll probably be sufficient because it will have gone a little bit off the sides anyway while I was doing it. So now I've done my very gentle brush strokes. Oh, I've missed a bit there in the one direction. I'm just going to put a little bit more on. Oh, well, maybe it's too much now because the surface is already wet. Well, we'll find out, won't we? And then I'm just going to spread it. Again, I'm just trying to use the tip of this brush where I've got those super soft bristles in the hope that it won't leave much in the way of any brush strokes. It's actually looking really nice. I don't really see anything. I still see a little bit of the texture of the canvas coming through, but it's pretty much self-leveling, I think. Okay, so that's it. That's my first coat. It's already looking glossier and nicer than it was before, so I'm happy with it. So I'm going to just go and wrap my brush, I think, in a bit of plastic wrap, because we need to leave at least 2 hours between coats, it says. So I'll close up my finish, wrap up my brush, and then I'll come back in another couple of hours and give it another coat, and I'll report back at the end and show you and see if we've got a nice glossy finish on it. And there we go. This is my painting finished. It's had 3 coats of that polyacrylic varnish on it, and it's got a much nicer sheen now. It looks and feels a lot more luxurious. It's still a little bit wet, so I've got to be careful where I put my fingers. But as you can see, it looks a lot more glossy, and I'm really happy with it. It's made the colours a little bit brighter. I think the whole thing looks a lot better, actually. I think I prefer it that way up, although I'm not really sure. Who cares anyway? So this has been quite successful, and I hope when I go on to do my pouring with all of my new supplies that I've got at the supermarket and at the DIY store and so on, that I'll be able to create something that I like just as much. Thanks for looking at my, my first picture.